Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our spiritual power tools exploration tonight. We are actually on the spiritual power tools tonight instead of all of the other chapters that we've been working on, although those have been really important leading up to our looking at the spiritual power tools, because the spiritual power tools in and of themselves are useful and they're practical and easy to use in all sorts of different situations. But in the context that we're talking about, these spiritual power tools, they serve the purpose of supporting our awakening, supporting our opening. So that's a big difference. And that's why the beginning of our class so far has been important. So I'm going to go ahead and start our PowerPoint here. All right. Come on, there we go. All right, so here we are. But before we get started, I want to check in with everybody and just ask you about our exploration from the past couple of weeks about the subconscious mind and how it operates. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them up, or any insights you've had about it also, because I imagine most of you were getting the picture of that iceberg and how our reactions come from what's stored within us, and not just what's happening in the present moment, but it pulls on our storage as well. So, I imagine that's not a new concept for you. And also I'm interested in knowing, what are your processing go-to tools? If you have an emotional something come up, what do you use to support yourself? How do you look at that? How do you resolve that? Do you just pack it back down into your subconscious mind and not worry about it? And I don't want to have to think about that. I'm watching my TV show. I don't want to have to think about that. Or do you spend time with it? Which brings me to my next question. And even if you just think about these right now, that's helpful too. Do you make time for your spiritual hygiene? We have our physical hygiene. We shower and brush our teeth and, clip our nails, whatever. And we make time for those things because they can get in our way if we don't do that. If we don't do those things, if we don't keep on top of those things. But the same is true for our emotional hygiene and our mental hygiene and our spiritual hygiene. So those are equally, if not more important, to take care of. And have a routine that supports us during our journey. When we want to work on things and not just be in denial about ourselves, then we have to have that commitment, and we have to have that time and space and willingness to look at ourselves and look at our reactions to things and what's going on inside of our minds. So things to think about, important things to think about. So just a reminder that the purpose of these spiritual power tools is to clear the subconscious blocks from that iceberg that we talked about and wake up to our whole self. Even if your heart's desire is the perfect relationship, even if your heart's desire is the perfect career expression, even if your heart's desire is a new car, whenever we desire something, our mind-body system will bring up whatever is in the way to the fulfillment of that. And so these spiritual power tools, even though they are designed for the spiritual journey and awakening to our whole higher self, we can use these also to remove the blocks to whatever our heart's desire, again, because again, every heart's desire is important to the universe, because until we get our desires that are stronger than our desire to wake up, until we get all those completed, they'll be in the way to our own awakening. We'll get too distracted by those other desires. So every desire is a very important desire. All right, spiritual power tool number 1, meditation. Now, I don't know if you noticed in this section, if you looked ahead, but the description for spiritual power tool number 1, meditation, is this long, one paragraph. I don't know, you probably can't read it, but that's okay. It's one paragraph. Why? Because chapter 3 before this had pages on meditation. So basically what we need to know with this spiritual power tool is do it, meditate. Meditation is the most important tool that you can use on your spiritual journey. Any questions? But do you think I'm going to leave that alone? Absolutely not. So we're going to talk more about meditation because understanding why it's important is secondary only to actually doing it. So meditation, Jane Elizabeth says in her book, meditation is the device that connects you to your soul and supplies the spiritual electricity that energizes all of the other spiritual power tools. It's our plugging into the eternal internet, if you will, where all of our answers are. So our meditation is how we connect with that infinite wisdom. Okay, meditation is how we develop our intuition. It's the most important action we can take to change our consciousness. If we are sad or, we'll talk about this a little bit later tonight too, but any state of mind we're in that we want to move out of because it's just kind of a bummer to hang out there, meditation is one first good action we can take to change where we are, to change where our mind is. Meditation helps us learn to observe our thoughts. It helps us practice stilling our mind. It helps us practice understanding what's going on in the mind. And it helps us practice change the direction of the energy that we're giving our mind attention to. So if we're thinking about our grocery shopping list during our meditation time, we can practice bringing it back. It's like, okay, groceries can wait, Instacart can wait, bring it back to what do I need to do right now, which is just focus on my breath, focus on my candle, focus on my picture, focus on my calmness in my body, whatever it is that you're focusing on in your meditation time, giving your attention to that. And then your mind will wander again, and then you bring it back and refocus. One thing that helps that this part of our spiritual hygiene is setting up our meditation station. So have one place, a daily time to meditate, one place where you meditate, keep your commitment and make it sacred. I am sitting in my meditation chair. This also happens to be my therapist chair while I'm working, and my webinar chair, and my journaling chair. And then everything else is the rest of the house. So this is my meditation station. I always say start with 5 minutes every day if you're not already meditating, and don't give up. Don't give up no matter how, I will exaggerate and say no matter how miserable it feels, keep your 5 minutes because you're building a muscle, you're building space. You'll have your ups and downs. Some days will feel so relaxing and blissful, and other days will feel like, why did I even bother sitting there? I didn't do anything but think about everything else. But you're building an energy in that time and space that where your meditation commitment is. And I shared before a few months ago on one of our Sunday night gatherings that I experienced a real physical sensation of this, where I had my meditation station, I was meditating and meditating on an ongoing basis, and then I just heard this voice that said, no, get up and go in the other room and meditate on that couch. So I got up and I went over there, and the energy was totally different. There was like zero meditation energy. It was just an office area that where our computers were, and we would just do business there. And then I went back to my meditation chair, and I just felt this support, and it allowed me to relax and just ease into my meditation. So we're building an energy there. Like if you think of, if you've ever been to the redwood forest, or when you go out in nature, maybe anywhere by an ocean or in a big significant building, like trying to think of, like a lot of churches have big energy to them, and they have big energy to them because churches and temples, because people are praying there and they're building an energy there. And that energy maintains and sustains itself as long as people are enlivening that prayerful place. And nature has its own energy to it. And, you know, as long as nature is living, then that energy is there and we can go and we can tap into that. Well, that's what you're doing when you're creating your meditation station, when you have your time and you have your location and you keep that commitment, you are enlivening and adding to that energy, and that will support you every time you sit down. So then it will lift you faster than if you only meditate every now and then. It'll still lift you, but you know, you want to build that momentum, because that's what supports you. All right, so meditation myth number one, and actually this is number one and only because I didn't add the other one, I decided not to. But I'm going to send, I did a video a few years ago that talks about what I'm going to be talking about here, that I will send out with our recording from tonight. But the myth is that meditation is always about getting a blank mind. And it is so not about a blank mind or no blank mind. It's just not about that at all. And many people quit their meditation practices because they have too many thoughts going on. Well, of course we do, because we have a brain and we have a subconscious storage that's always shooting up thoughts and emotions and, you know, random things, you know, all the time. You know, we know that when we're sleeping, we dream, and dreams can be very bizarre sometimes and very creative. Where is that coming from? It's all coming from our subconscious mind, but so are our thoughts during the day. The difference is during the day, we are distracting ourselves by whatever it is we have to do, whether it's work or, you know, for me, mostly it's work, or watching TV, or, you know, the other activities that we're doing during the daytime that take our focus away from what's going on in our minds. But our thoughts and our feelings are still moving through our brains all the time. And so what meditation does is it allows us to understand what's coming up, because when we're unaware of the thoughts coming up into our mind, they inevitably drag us in one direction or another. So an example that I use on this video that I will send out is, you know, if I'm in my office at work versus home, or if I'm at home and I'm thinking of the chocolate covered almonds that are in my cupboard, and I think about them, and maybe I can slough it off for a little while and not worry about it. And, you know, but if I keep thinking about them, if they keep pulling in my brain, then what's going to happen? I am going to go into those chocolate covered almonds and have my way with them, right? So our actions and attitudes follow our thinking and our emotions. So whatever spends time in our heads is what guides the rest of us. So it's to our benefit to know what's going on in our minds. What are we thinking? What are we feeling? Because that's what's guiding us anyway. And meditation builds that muscle of the mind so that our conscious awareness is more in charge of our actions and our decision making than our unconscious thoughts and emotions that pop in and out all the time. And that's what we want. We want to be consciously supporting ourselves, not unconsciously dragged around by whatever is going on in our mind. So practicing, focusing, practicing, you know, pulling our mind from the grocery list or the chocolate covered almonds to where we are right now, just our breath, our silence, our quietness. I have a wristband that I wear. I'll take it off and show you. This is actually for brain spotting, which is a tool that I use. And it says WAIT, W-A-I-T. And then it says, it stands for why am I talking? Because in brain spotting, our retraining that we have to go through as therapists is, you know, usually somebody comes in and it's about us solving problems for them and with them and coming up with solutions and talking things through, and that's all great. But in brain spotting, it's a process where we're allowing the mind-body system of the client to come through and show us and guide the healing process instead of the therapist being the guide. It's that internal wisdom being the guide. So our training is to therapist, keep your mouth shut and let the client's process do the healing. And so the reason I'm bringing that up is because in meditation, it's helping us practice waiting. Wait, why am I thinking? Because remember, our intellect is limited and our intuition is unlimited. Our intuition is connected to unlimited universal resources that help us solve problems in new ways, not just pulling from our past and what we've learned, which is great, but it's limited. But it helps us pull in information from storage beyond us, beyond our human mind. So we want that thinking to lessen, that intellectual thinking to lessen, and the intuitive receptivity to strengthen within us. And I heard the story of a Buddhist monk speaking to some people, and somebody asked him about, why does this take so long? Why, I want to meditate, but I just feel like I'm not progressing fast enough. And he said, make haste slowly. And that's our meditation practice. We make haste. We have this urgency this drive to connect within, and we have to be patient with that. We have to make haste slowly, steadily, slowly, gently. All right. Let me know if you have any questions about meditation. And we are going on to our second spiritual power tool, which is journaling. Journaling. So as you meditate, important information is coming to the surface from the subconscious mind, as it does, or the superconscious mind when we're still and things are moving through us. Writing those down helps us understand what it is. What is my soul trying to show me? Because our soul is always current with us. Our soul is always on top of what we need to do to accomplish whatever that heart's desire is. So our thinking can get in the way. So if we're journaling, it's a way to let out some of our thoughts and move them out of the way so that intuition can flow a little bit more. It also helps us to, keep track of those insights that come into our awareness. Jane Elizabeth often calls them revelations. There are revelations happening through us all the time, supporting us, like, oh, wow, yeah, that's why I got triggered by that person the other day. That's right, I understand that. And I can write that down and understand, like, okay, so here was the situation and here's what triggered me. And now I have this insight, this revelation as to why that triggered me. And that revelation is partly past information, but it's the intuitive nature to that is understanding the context of the trigger and why it happened, so that I can go, okay, so this is something that I need to work on and heal and release and let go, so that I can move forward and not be triggered by that. Not just because I've worked on myself, but because working on myself led me to understand the issue well enough to be able to fully let it go. And journaling gets to the root faster than talking or thinking about it. It gets to the root faster than thinking about it because our thoughts are always going on one side or the other. And just when we decide, okay, so I've decided, I really don't need to be triggered by that anymore because it really came from my past, and I understand where it came from now, and it just feels so good. And then maybe 10 minutes later, maybe it did come from my past, but that person really ticked me off. And here are all the reasons why I am perfectly justified in being ticked off with this person, and maybe I'll go tell them. Maybe I need to tell them. And then we'll jump to the other side. No, that's not really what it's about. This person just came and did that so that I would be able to see my issue and let it go. And then we're there for a few minutes, and then we jump back to the other side. Okay, yeah, but I really want to say something, and I may have to not see that person again for a while for fear that I might actually say something. And then we go back and forth. So we go back and forth like this, and it takes a long time, and then it doesn't really resolve because our mind is busy batting it back and forth. And if you can think of that as our brain electricity, you know, the electricity goes from one little connection that said, wow, I'm really mad because you triggered me, to the other side, and that's trying to help us, which is, you know, let's just see this for what it is and move forward. But our mind is just really stubborn and tricky sometimes. So writing it down helps it all come out. It puts us in a different part of our brain from our thinking, rational mind that can get confused because the emotions pop up and influence our rational mind. And, you know, but if we're writing it down, we're in a whole different part of our brain, a more whole part of our brain. And we're letting out the energy while we're writing too. If you want to type it on your computer or thumb it on your phone, more power to you. I am an old-fashioned, you know, pen and paper journaler, but it helps better than just thinking about it or even talking about it, you know. And I'm a therapist, so I love people talking to me. It's great, but there's always a point at which journaling helps a person see it better than anything I could say, right? And my writing something for myself is going to implant it and awaken it in me, and I will own it better than somebody, you know, a friend or another therapist or something giving me advice, or even if it's good advice, even if I think it's good advice. If I don't own the insight, then it's just going to keep going around in my head. So journaling, journaling, journaling. All right. It also builds confidence in our intuition because we see, as we're writing our insights, not just when we're triggered, but when we're writing our insights and our revelations and the things that come through us that are inspiring, when we write that down, we will inevitably at some point, and probably lots of points, see that follow through, see that come true. And that's like some kind of prediction, although that can happen, but more, you know, if I am more conscious the next time I make a phone call to that particular person, then things will go smoothly. And I can journal that, and then I have that with me to take when I pick up the phone to call that whatever person, and I can be more conscious and see that my intuition guided me beautifully. And awakening and reaching our goals, working towards a goal, is always about self-discovery. It's not about the goal, even though we like our goals, we like our ponies, we like our cookies, we like our chocolate covered almonds, but it's not about the goal. It's about the process of self-discovery, moving towards that goal. And journaling helps that discovery. It backs it up and it records that discovery, and we can go back and look at where we've come, and if we forget something, we have it written down and go, yeah, what was I supposed to do before I called this person? There's something specific. Let me go back and look. We can look and have that support too. And in her book, Jane Elizabeth reminds us that every problem is here to support our healing and our awakening, and we can use those situations to our advantage. All right, and then she has in this chapter on journaling some questions that help get us started, help jumpstart our journaling process. So something happens. Okay, something happens, you know, those days when something happens. There are days when nothing happens, those rare days where it's quiet, but when something happens, here's some questions to get you started. What emotions are you feeling? Name the emotions. In neuroscience, they say name it to tame it. So we name our emotions so that we can say, okay, I'm feeling angry. Instead of being angry, we can feel that anger and notice it. And then the next question, who or what pushed your buttons? And this is just about the context of the situation. And we're going a little bit deeper. Does this always happen to you? Is this a pattern in your life? Do you always feel triggered when somebody does such and such to you? Is this a pattern? What is your soul trying to tell you? You can see we're moving from our emotion to our intellect to our intuition. What is your soul trying to tell you? And it's more of an internal listening. And this number 5 is my very, very favorite question. If you were guided by your soul rather than being run by your ego, that kind of burns a little bit. Let me go back. If you were guided by your soul rather than being run by your ego, how would you handle things differently? Beautiful question. Hard to take sometimes, but beautiful, beautiful question. You know, and why not? What a beautiful opportunity to step back and what does that mean, being run by our ego? Being run by our emotional reactions, basically, right? Let's just leave it at that. Let's just make it really simple. If we're being run by our ego, we're being run by our emotional reactions, which could be from 500 years ago. And here we are now reacting to this thing that's happening now, but the emotion is from 500 years ago. So we're not in charge, we're not in control, we're not even seeing the situation clearly. So what a beautiful opportunity, what a beautiful question to say, if you were guided by your soul, rather than being run by your ego, how would you handle things differently? Put it in first person. If I were guided by my soul, rather than being run by my ego right now, how would I handle this differently? I use this question all the time, and it's so helpful. It's so helpful because it just gives me that step back so I can see the whole picture. All right, spiritual power tool number 3. All right, let me know if you need anything, because I'm just moving right along here. Spiritual power tool number 3, spiritual thermometer. So this is an awesome self-awareness tool. It helps manage your thoughts and feelings, but it's just checking in. It's a check-in. What's my emotional temperature right now? I'll pass this out, this worksheet. I have this spiritual thermometer on a worksheet, and I'll hand it out to people. And you know, for the people who aren't into the spiritual stuff, it's like, just think of it as the emotional thermometer. Emotional thermometer. So on the emotional thermometer, on the spiritual thermometer, the 5 is where we're just kind of neutral. We're just kind of hopping along, kind of neutral, not happy, sad, no, not unemotional, but just steady emotions. Okay, is that the 5? And then below a 5, we are in our emotions of one sort or another. So our limited self, if you want to call it, being run by the ego, drama, fear, danger, and we don't want to make decisions while we're here. We don't want to take action, because why? When we're being run by our ego, we could be run by part of an ego of us in our iceberg from 300 years ago that is not seeing the current situation clearly. So we do not want to act from that. And this is interesting too, because it's easy to think about the spiritual thermometer in a way where we're just dealing with negative, what we would call negative emotions, like fear or sadness or anger. But this can also be overrun positive emotions that we would call positive as well. Like, have you ever just felt so excited that you just said, yeah, I'll come help you move your refrigerator, no problem. No, I don't need any help. I can do it on my own. I'm just feeling so great and so strong and so helpful that, yeah, I'll come help you move your refrigerator. And then you get there and you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? You know, so even our positive emotions can be below a 5, where we're caught up in our emotion. We're caught up in emotion rather than even our rational mind, rather than, and certainly rather than our intuitive mind. So we want to be aware of when we're down there. Then above a 5 is our calm place, our Zen zone, right? It's the peace of mind, discernment, our clear thinking, our intuition, guidance, ideas, focus, and then our I am presence, where we feel that oneness more with our soul connection rather than our human personality, ego, emotional connection. And we don't think clearly, just even on a brain level and neuroscience level. When we are emotional, we are intoxicated with our brain chemistry adrenaline and cortisol and other things that come up, and they physically cloud our rational mind. If you remember, a rational part of our brains is up here, and our emotions come and flood that whole area, so we don't think clearly. And that's evolutionary. It's set up so that when we are in danger, we're not thinking about it, we're running. You know, or if we're angered or threatened to the point of anger, then we're fighting instead of thinking. We're just trying to protect ourselves. It's a survival thing, so it's not bad, but we don't need that anymore. We've really, you know, believe it or not, have our environment has evolved beyond the situation of needing those kind of survival reactions to be used as frequently as they still are. So it's important to know when we're in that emotional reaction so that we can say, okay, I'm emotionally reacting to something. I need to look at this and do something within myself about it. First of all, you know, help myself raise above that 5 so I can think more clearly about it. Okay, I saw a question pop up. So before I continue on, I'm going to check this out. Okay, so you've been able to see where positive emotions were a trigger. Yeah, absolutely. So easy, and it just seems so right, doesn't it? Just like, oh yeah, I love everybody, even that person who's not safe. I love that person too, and everybody, you know, we're all one, and you know, nothing else matters. And yeah, it does, because we're here to learn, we're here to grow, we're here to have good discernment as well, right? So I want to be clear that being stuck in our emotions is not something to feel ashamed about, or to be worried about, or to hurry up and get out of, because our subconscious stuff comes up to be released, not acted upon, but to be released. And if we don't have that, a chunk of that iceberg come up and be in our faces, which is usually what's going on when we're in our emotions, then how are we going to see it? It's just going to be packed down there. So it comes up to be noticed. And how it's noticed is most of the time through our emotions. Like, hey, this is an unhealed piece of you. Look at it. Do something about it. And yeah, you're in your emotions. Hallelujah. Let's get this going. Let's do something about that. Being able to know when we're in emotions helps us to discern our impulse reactions from our intellect or intuition. And when we have a situation like that, we need to honor where we are. I'm feeling really angry that that person pushed my buttons. Okay, that's fair, right? I'm human. But then what am I going to do about it? Do I just react and act out? And when we talk about karma, we'll talk about, like, why would we want to push that ball back and forth and keep playing that game when we can say, okay, this person is pushing my buttons, and it's my job to not react, so that this dynamic between us can be healed as well. We're healing things within ourselves, but we're also healing relationships too, which I'm going way too far ahead of myself here, but okay, let's keep going on this. So when we're using the spiritual thermometer as a guide, it's just a nice visual that Jane Elizabeth came up with to help her understand where is she at and when to act and when not to act. So it helps us step back and say, okay, what do I need to do here? I'm feeling angry. What do I need to do here? And there's that wait, W-A-I-T, wait for your answer. Why am I talking? Why am I thinking? Just, okay, I need to breathe, meditate. At the bottom of the spiritual thermometer, she gives some ideas: forgiveness, I need to forgive, release, surrender, quiet the mind. And surrender doesn't mean be a victim, you know, give up or be a victim. Surrender means let go of your emotional reaction. Let it go. let it go. And it can feel like surrendering. It can feel like, well, if I don't react, then I am just being walked all over. And that's not it. We want to do the wise thing, not what seems humanly fair, because fair doesn't always heal. Fair is a limited picture of what's really happening. It's the 1/10 dynamic that's going on instead of looking at what else might be needing to be healed here. And that 1/10 is a really small piece to let go of in order to heal way more than we realize is being healed in the moment. So when in doubt, forgive, meditate, wait some more. Sometimes we don't get our answer right away. Like, what do I need to do about this? And sometimes we get nothing. And guess what is ours to do? Nothing. Nothing. Just, okay, if I'm supposed to do something, I will do it. Otherwise, it's not my problem. And every problem is here to support you, even if it means I don't have to do anything about this. This is not my problem. This is not my problem. Another thing that is good to have around us is a lot of positive self-talk to help us when we're below a 5, and understanding why we have emotional reactions is helpful. Like, okay, I'm reacting to this emotionally so I can heal something. That is way more important to me than anything else. So what do I need to see here? And journaling helps us pull out the lessons sometimes. I had a period of time where I was having a lot of clients come in who were, kind of getting ready for college, and they were anxious and depressed and stressed out. And my oldest was in the same age range, and I was hearing the same thing from my child too. So there's a lot of, and I was listening to this, and I was getting really wound up about colleges, the pressure they put on high school kids, and the kids have to take AP classes, and they have to have a portfolio and to go to college, and all this, they have to have extracurricular activities, plus all these AP classes and honors classes make them have 3 to 5 hours of homework a night. Plus, if they're in sports, they have to practice either after school or before school. And sleep, who needs sleep? And I was furious on behalf of these kids. I was furious. And I even talked to a school counselor who told me that, yeah, our mental health days where kids are gone has gone up by 25% in the last few years. And this is from the same school that I heard that, they put me, meaning one of the students, they put me in these advanced courses. I didn't really want to take them, but they said, well, you can always transfer out, but then there's a lot of pressure. Oh, you just have to, I heard from my own, they say that our time management isn't good and we have to be better at time management, but I'm doing my homework all the time. How can I manage my time better? I need to sleep, and it was so stressful. And I was furious. I was furious as a mom. I was furious as a therapist. I was furious as a human being. Like, what are you guys who are making all these rules go, and you sit in school for 8 hours? Oh, here, see, I'm getting wound up about this already. You go sit in school for 8 hours and then go practice ramming into each other for another 2 hours, and then have 4 hours of homework, and then have family that wants to see you, and then, sleep, there's sleep. And do this 5 days in a week, and tell me that you aren't completely anxious and depressed by the end of 2 weeks. Do it for 1 week, and you will not want to do it for another week. And so I wrote a letter. Is my guidance. Write down what I'm feeling, right? So just write a letter to somebody. So I was writing I was journaling this letter to superintendents and the college admissions offices and all of this, saying, what on earth are you doing making our kids burn out workaholics before they even finish high school? And I was going on, and I wrote venom for 2.5 pages straight, 2.5 pages front and back of a legal pad. This is the kind of thing I do my journal ranting on a legal pad, just like this, 2.5 pages of this. And I finally got to the bottom of that 3rd page, and I just heard this voice that said, "Is this really yours to do?" And suddenly all the wind got knocked out of my sails. It's like, oh, I guess this really is not what I'm here to do. It could be, but I know it's not. So, okay. So maybe I don't know what's best for these kids. Not that this is awesome, but how can I support them differently instead of getting below a 5 with them in their struggle? How can I support them? How can I help them let go of something and let it be okay? How can I work with parents to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't need to be stressing our kids out. Maybe there's a different way for me to support. But if I was going to go rant at every superintendent and college admissions office, then that's what my time was going to be spent on, and was not going to be helpful for me. Maybe it is for somebody else, but that wasn't me. So my awareness that I was hanging on for dear life to a 1 on that spiritual thermometer, and wanting to go to a -5, really wanting to, like, both barrels, wanting to go to a -5 and not caring who I demolished in the process. And then journaling helped me to let that out and see, what is this going on in me that I feel so strongly about it? It's my mother bear coming out and saying, you hurt my child, I will punch you. And, then I had other people's children that I was going to take along with me. So, so that is kind of a combination, an example of a combination of these processes where we have to see what is ours to do, and not everything is ours to do. So I had to surrender my desire to punch all of these adults who are doing this to our kids, and I wasn't giving up. I just was redirecting myself in a way that was way more supportive and helpful to the people who are mine to serve. So that's what I mean by surrender. And that's what Jane Elizabeth means by surrender, not giving up, getting walked over, being a wimp, but saying, hey, this is not mine. This is not mine. What's mine to do is whatever feels in alignment. When I'm in clear think, how does that look? When I am being run by my soul and not taken over by my emotions, what is mine to do? And we're letting go of that, I want to say lower, but lower on, at least on the spiritual thermometer, that lower order of reaction that clouds our thinking. And it does cloud our thinking physiologically as well as emotionally, as well as clouding our intuition. All right. Yeah, thank you. And what was my solution in this case? What my solution was, it's a good question. What my solution was to back off and say, okay, for my own child, teenager, what I did was my best to support them in finding out what they could do and letting go of what they can't and being okay with that. We don't have to be superhuman. Nobody's going to look back and, I don't care what a portfolio looks like. There's no need to hurt oneself in the process, right? So my solution was to support each individual, whether it was my own or somebody else's teenager, support them to align with what was important with them, was important to them, not to a school. Unfortunately, not to a parent sometimes either, So what is it that, so that was my solution, to switch my gear. What is important for this individual? What makes, and for some it was like, hey, This one, you just need to root on. Say, yeah, keep going. You can do this. The semester will be over soon. Your schedule is lighter next semester, and let's just breathe. Let's give you some relaxation techniques. So at least you're not in worry about it. You have a lot to do. You have to push yourself, but let's give you some relaxation tools so that you're more resilient as you're walking through the rest of the semester. So those were the solutions. Those are the kinds of solutions that came up to help them. And daily meditation is necessary, as we said earlier when we were talking about meditation, to tap into those higher states of consciousness, to tap into our intuition, to have the willingness and the strength to hold ourselves back when those emotions are really high. That meditation, remember, it's practicing being in charge of our thoughts and our emotions, not having no thoughts or emotions, but being in charge of them instead of them being in charge of us. You know, and journaling, in my example here, journaling helps that. And because I had steam coming out of my eyeball, I can feel it. I remember it so well, and I still think it's ridiculous, but I just know it's not mine to do, and I know how to support people better now. Okay, so let's see. I think that's all for us tonight. We covered everything. I don't even know what time it is. Let me see. Oh, perfect. All right, so now I wound myself all up talking about that. So this meditation is going to feel really good. So meditation station. Think about, if you don't already have one, and maybe you have a couple different places where you meditate, but it really does make a difference to have a location where you're building that energy and you're holding that time for yourself every day, because it's momentum, it's energetic momentum, and it will support you. Then when you have something come up, like, you know, unreasonable expectations on teenagers, and you feel like your mind is going to explode with frustration, you can go sit in your meditation station with your pad of paper and your pen, or your thumbs and your phone, or your whatever that you use, and let it out, and then say, okay, thank you for showing me what I need to see here. Thank you for saving me from myself. And then things clear out, and then you can sit with that relief, realign yourself, allow yourself to be realigned with what is yours to do, rather than your emotions aligning you with something that may or may not be helpful. And I'd rather know that I'm being helpful than let my emotions win, and you know, not then doubt if I did the right thing or not, because we don't like it when our emotions overrun us. We feel bad. You know, even if we deny that, we do. There's a part of us that feels bad when we get taken over by our emotions, because we know we're out of control. Somebody was asking when I meditate. I get up in the morning at 6 a.m. and meditate for about a half an hour, sometimes longer, and then I go back to bed for an hour and a half because I can. And I did for a while, for about a month, maybe years ago. This was 25 years ago. I used to get up at 5 a.m. to meditate because I thought that was what I was supposed to do. So I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go sit on the couch and meditate and fall asleep. And my head would be rolling all over the place. And finally I said, okay, God, look, I promise I will meditate every day if you promise not to make me get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So we had an understanding, you know, and so I've made it 6 o'clock because I like the quiet. I'm awake enough that I don't usually fall asleep. I've got my headphones here that I listen to some music. It kind of closes out any other sound going on, and there's a spiritual power tool at the end of our book called The Prescription for Spiritual Growth. It's a series of affirmations, and I use those to help center myself. And then I just try to listen, like I'm listening to a friend. Not so much a client, I suppose, but just listening to a friend. Because if I'm listening to a client, I'm listening for different things. But if I'm listening to a friend, I'm just there for them. I don't have to do anything. So I just pretend I'm listening to a friend, and I just patiently listen. Maybe they don't want to talk. I'm listening. And I just, when my mind wanders, I bring it back to listening and listening. And if I have something on my mind, actually that would be a good meditation to do sometime too. I have a meditation station in my consciousness, if you will, that is an imaginary room that I've used for a long time now, a couple decades, that where it's my space. It's my spiritual room inside of myself that I've created, and that's where I go when I meditate. So I have my outer one right here in this big fluffy chair, but where I go once I sit here is inside to this inner room that has a table with a box on it. And when I have a question about something or worry about something, or if I have a desire about something that's keeping my mind occupied, I will just place it in the box. And if I have to place it in the box 50 times while I'm meditating, then I'll place it in the box 50 times to bring myself back, to let it go and bring myself back. Trying to think of what else that I do. Sometimes I imagine that every cell in my body has ears or a satellite dish, and it's listening. Every cell is listening, so I can put myself in that receptive place. Our minds are tricky too, so we have to be willing to try different things to focus. Because we can listen to music so much, but then our mind figures out music and it says, okay, well, I can talk over music. I know that doesn't bother me. So we have to come up with something different, so then we can focus on the breath. So if we have a few that we practice, saying a mantra, affirmation, or just the word peace, just let that be the anchor. That, grocery store, peace. And not shoving it away. Charles Fillmore, who is the founder of, one of the founders of the Unity movement that I grew up in as my religious denomination, described it so beautifully when he would say, you just sit and you notice your mind, and it's like you have cobwebs all over. So when the thoughts come, you just sweep it gently away, like you're moving away a cobweb. If that grosses you out, then you can, you're moving away a curtain, just gently like that, not with force, because that just strengthens whatever the thought is. It says, oh no, you won't push me away. I'll come right back. So just gently sweeping the thoughts away. So maybe that's a good visualization for us tonight, sweeping those thoughts gently away. So I invite you to just get comfortable in your space that you're in right now. It doesn't have to be your meditation spot. It can be anywhere for now, because you can take whatever you do here to your meditation time and place. And take a couple of deep breaths to let your mind-body system calm, letting go of everything we've talked about. It's really all about listening inside. Learning how to manage the old thought forms that come up and try to tell us we're not okay somehow, or that something is more important than our peace. So if you're not in your meditation spot, just picture yourself there. Imagine that you're there, that place where you meditate. Feel the chair that supports you in this meditation room. And feel your body so supported that you don't even have to think about it. Just relaxes. And if you feel any tension in your body, just notice it and give it permission to let go. One visualization I like to use too is that my heart is in the center of a satellite dish, listening to the universe, taking in all the signals. Maybe I don't notice them, or maybe I don't understand them, or maybe I don't even know if anything's coming in, but I'm still receptive, I'm still listening. And what is it like to just listen without responding? Listen without thinking. And the thoughts will come, and we just gently sweep them to the side. What a beautiful gift to our mind-body system to not have to do anything but listen. You can hear the sounds around us. Just let them be. They just are. Sometimes music is helpful. Just let the listening be the notes, the sounds, without judging them as good or bad or anything, just listening. Sometimes our minds can get active because we feel energy when we listen, when we let go of our needing to think or figure something out. And that energy stirs us, stirs the mind sometimes. That's why we have to support it and just say, it's okay, just listen. In many of her classes over the years, Jane Elizabeth would describe what she would do, and she would imagine that her thoughts were an old-fashioned tape player, audio tape player, and she would click the stop button to stop the thought before it got too far, stop at mid-sentence, go back to listening. The listening is where our intuitive downloading happens, that receiving information that we may not know of now, but will help us come into our consciousness exactly when we need it. Sometimes I sit in this inner meditation room and I say, okay, God, I have no idea what to do here, but you do. Show me. It's a beautiful gift we have, this ability to listen beyond our thoughts. The more we do it, the more it supports us, the more aware of it we are. And just notice any experience you have of this peaceful receptivity, this listening inside yourself beyond your thoughts that are just seem perpetual sometimes. But it's a practice to strengthen that. It's a practice to hone that ability. And it's worth honing. So feel yourself moving out of your internal meditation chair. Just walk. As you walk, you feel yourself in your physical chair that you're in, your physical space. Feeling your feet on the floor. Take a deep breath. And 5 minutes is way shorter than that. So it's not much. And after a while, 5 minutes will not be satisfying. That's the beauty of that inner pull, that inner support. Next week, we will be moving on to our next spiritual power tool. And we're just going to talk about one next week because it's number 4, the 7 steps for successful life transition. Very, very important tool in our letting go and aligning with our heart's desire in our own process. So I hope you join me next week. Thank you for coming today. And very happy that you joined me tonight. And I encourage you to work with your meditation station this week and forever. But work with it this week and see how that goes for you, because it's definitely a beautiful support. So thank you, everybody. I think I have to stop sharing my screen in order to move us out for today. And my love to you all as well. Okay, I'm not being able to figure out how to do this. All right, there we go. Good night, everybody. See you next week.